And so the E&A Coalition submitted again a petition and a filing that, you know, those solutions were not adequate enough. And it went back through the system all over again. It started out going back to the trial court level, and then the trial court made issued a ruling based on the facts that were presented about what had happened in terms of trying to fix the problem. And then that ruling, and he ruled that it was still unconstitutional, that ruling went back up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court then issued a second ruling, which is commonly referred to as the Roth II. In the Roth II, they ruled the system unconstitutional, and again, the key elements of why it was ruled unconstitutional: over-reliance on local property taxes, structural deficiencies in the basic aid formula itself, and again, this is referring to things like the guarantees, again, things like the cost of an education aren't tied to what the actual costs are. The formulas and the methodologies used at that time were just based on estimates of what those costs were, as opposed to actually looking at the actual cost. The School Solvency Assistance Fund, again, that replaced the school loan system, but again, it was basically a loan system that the court still found did not meet the standard of creating a thorough and efficient school funding system in the state of Ohio. The court identified the unfunded mandates that were created as a part of the legislation that I just referred to, that the state created in response to the Roth I, House Bill 412 and Senate Bill 55. They mentioned again family revenue, local match for school facilities, which was kind of interesting because by the time we got to the second DeRoth decision, you know, we had created the school facilities program, and the school facilities program required a local match in order for you to even be eligible to participate in the program. And the court identified that local match requirement as a part of why the system is unconstitutional. And we still have that local match component even to this day. And then a lack of statewide academic guidelines. And this really was getting to the heart of a question that, you know, in the midst of this school funding issue that was being debated here in the state of Ohio, our society, I mean globally, our global society was going through economic and societal changes that were brought on by the technological advancements our society was going through. And I'm going to now go through, you know, what some of those changes were. But again, with the second case that the Supreme Court heard on DeRoth, the court again said, because of the things I just talked about, the system is still unconstitutional. But again, in the second opinion for DeRoth II, the court, and again in this last point here, a lack of statewide academic guidelines. So the court now has transitioned from just looking at funding to now say, you know, we also have to be concerned about academics. We have to make sure that our educational system is providing the type of adequate education that our students in the state of Ohio will be able to survive in a new economy, a new world. And you'll even see that Justice Resnick, who wrote that opinion, referred to the 21st century economy and what was going on at that particular time, which is around 2000, the year 2000, what was going on with some of these societal changes and economic changes.
Just a quick question for clarification. When you say Roman numeral II, are you referring to the ruling made in 2000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Make sure I got the, yep, May 11, 2000 was the second ruling. May 11 of 2000. And Resnick wrote that opinion. Justice Resnick wrote that opinion, and I think, yeah, Justice Douglas wrote the opinion in the first case, the first opinion. So when we talk about some of these the changing economic and societal changes, I've got a couple of things I'd like to quiz you on to see. Do you know what this is? How many know what this picture is?
Mobile phone, right?
It's a mobile phone. It was one of the first mobile phones. And I remember being in college, and seeing this thing for the first time, and it was like mind-boggling. And I was in college in the early to mid '80s, and it was mind-boggling because it was like, why do you have a phone and not have it attached to your house? You know?
Yeah.
Around with the phone, you know.
It's like the field.
Yeah. You know, it's just amazing. Ooh. What about this? How many are familiar with this? It's a robot. It's actually the Honda Asimo robot, and that's A-S-I-M-O. How many are familiar with the Honda Asimo robot? I would encourage all of you, if you have access to the internet, to go online and Google Honda Asimo, and that's A-S-I-M-O. I may be pronouncing it wrong, but it's A-S-I-M-O. And you'll find on the internet pictures like this. This is the first prototype of the robot, and then you'll see what Asimo, you'll see a picture in a little bit here of what Asimo looks like today. And then what about this picture? Yeah. But here's the trick on this, right? This is what this gentleman, who's a scientist in the 1960s, this is a model of what he thought the computer would look like in the 1980s.
And he's so proud.
Okay, and so, you know, that shows what people's thinking was just only 40 years ago of what they thought technology would look like. He was definitely wrong. You know, definitely wrong. And so when we look at the present, this is what Asimo looks like today. And the goal of Honda is to create a humanoid robot. So if you go back and look at that first picture, that didn't look really humanoid. But when you look at today's version, and this really, I bring this up because this really caught my attention, because when I was in the middle of thinking about education reform and trying to meet the governor's challenge to us as staff members to come up with ideas for education reform. I was at home, this was like in the summer of 2008, watching the news, and Asimo was serving tea and coffee at a Starbucks restaurant. And this was on the night, the national news that night. And it really just hit me at my core. Because for the first time in my life, I then began to envision, how many have seen Will Smith's I, Robot movie? I, Robot? Well, yeah, you read the book? Because not many held their hands up, Will Smith's I, Robot movie is about a future world state in the country where robots are so advanced that they can serve as really servant help for people. You know, maids, cooks, driving cabs, whatever, you know, sort of service labor is being performed by robots in this new society. And then, you know, it goes into all the drama that happens and all of that. But, when I saw that movie, I mean, even when you see movies like, Lost in Space, with the robot in Lost in Space, you never, you see those type of things, but you never envision it's going to happen in your lifetime. Well, when I saw Asimo on the nightly news that night in the summer of 2008, for the first time in my life, I sat there and thought to myself, you know what? I may see this in my lifetime, where we have robots in households. Because, when I was a kid, no one ever thought that you would have computers in your house, laptop computers, handheld computers. When I was a kid, no one ever thought you'd be seeing people carrying around cell phones like this. I mean, even the one in the 1980s, no one envisioned that, growing up. And by the way, I usually compare this to the telecommuter on Star Trek. Flip out the telecommuter and, be able to talk to different people all the time. And so, the next picture, is a picture of a cell phone and the advances that have been made. And then, of course, last but not least, is the handheld computer. Again, this is to bring home the fact that we have transitioned from an industrial manufacturing / agricultural based economy to an information technology based economy. you know, it's no longer the situation that we're going into this. We're there. We're smack dab in the middle of this new economy. And I think the things that we saw with the fiscal crisis and all that, a part of that has been, you know, and with General Motors and all of that, with the automobile industry, a part of all of that is a recognition of the economic system, recognizing that we are no longer in that industrial manufacturing-based economy. Google and internet and all of that has changed our world dramatically.